We're live. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Uncut Thread. Today we're talking about, is quilting a hobby or an industry? And we want to examine the business of craft and whether commercialization changes the meaning of art. We're live. Right? Yeah. Welcome everyone to another, so we want to see, um, would you categorize quilting as a hobby or as an industry? And then does commercialization change the meaning of art? And for those who have successfully turned quilting into a business, we would love to hear from you. What was the toughest lesson you have learned? So I'm going to start off by saying, before I introduce my co-host, that I've been on both sides of this conversation. I know what it feels like to make something with your whole heart and then feel strange about putting a number on it, you know. And then I also know the feeling of undercharging for years because you don't want it to seem like you're in it for the money, you know. But I'm really not here to tell you this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way to do it. I just genuinely want to hear what everyone thinks. So having said that, I want to introduce my co-host, Bob Silverman and Lisa Moore. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we will just get right into it, and please share your thoughts about the quilting. Is it a hobby or is it an industry? And then how do you feel commercialization has affected the meaning of textile arts?
I guess I'll start.
Okay.
Well, because I've been on both sides of this, for me, it started out as strictly a hobby, just something to do and that I fell in love with. And then it led into having a quilt shop, making samples, teaching classes, and selling fabric. I didn't so much sell finished quilts, but mostly the industry part of it was I had to make things that I could sell in the store, because that's how you stay in business. But after several years of that, I did start to burn out a little bit. We did do one big commission quilt, which afterwards I said I would never do again because it turned into just a bad experience. To make a long story short, we made a very large quilt for this couple. We consulted with them. They picked their fabrics. We printed out a picture of what it would look like. They loved it. We made the quilt. They paid us, and the husband came in a few months later and wanted to know if we could change the background. That his wife decided she didn't like the background color, and could we just take it apart? And I explained that it's not possible to do that. Once it's quilted, it's quilted. So that soured me a little bit on trying to like sell quilts. I don't sell my quilts that I make now, partially for that reason. I just don't think that people understand the time, the money, and the effort that goes into it and are necessarily willing to pay what I would have to charge for a quilt. So I just don't sell them right now. I don't think necessarily that commercialization has hurt quilting as a hobby, but I've noticed over the years with the internet, with the advent of the internet and everything being online, seems like products and things come at everybody faster and faster because people need to sell more and more and more to compete. So that part of it can be a little bit daunting for people who are in the business right now. But I don't think, I think it could be both things. I think it can be just a hobby for people, which, and if people are on a certain budget, they can find things at thrift shops. They can make do like people used to do. They can make do with what they find or what's donated or what they already have. Or you can go to QuiltCon and big shows and shop, which I like to do. So I don't necessarily think it's one or the other, but I'm prefer being on this side of it right now where I can just make things I love for no purpose whatsoever, except that I love doing it. And I don't have to write a pattern or explain it or any of that. Because after, I can't think of how many years it was a lot. And after a while, it just felt like competing with so many things coming at everybody, got to be a little overwhelming, trying to think of the new best thing and the new thing and all of that. But I
Right.
don't think commercialization has necessarily hurt it as a hobby, but I'd be curious to hear from people who actually sell their quilts,
Yeah.
what their opinion is about that.
All right. Thank you so much. Lisa, you want to weigh in?
I think it can be both. It's both. I'm relatively, I think of myself as a novice quilter, I guess, even though I've been quilting for 13, 14 years now. But getting into like making artwork, I do mostly art quilting. And doing it had the past couple of years have afforded me to exhibit some of my work in local venues and the opportunity to sell some of the things. I find it very difficult to price the things that I make because I don't view myself as a expert on it. I just make it because I love it. I just make things because I enjoy crafting with fabric and that kind of thing. Leslie, sorry. And oh, I'm sorry. And so I don't have a lot of expertise on it. I'm just becoming into this sphere a little bit more with joining up with Quilt Africa Fabric Tribe and doing a lot of things, projects with the tribe. And so I don't have a lot to add to it. So I'm basically just in it because I enjoy it. And if I am able to sell.
Okay. So it looks like Lisa has gone off. But if you're joining us, if you're just joining us, today we're talking about, is quilting a hobby or an industry? And then we're examining whether commercialization changes the meaning of art. And we also want to hear from those who have turned their quilting into a business and the toughest lessons that they have heard, that they have had, or learned. So the biggest thing I want us to like wrestle with today is keeping your quilting as a hobby a safe choice? Is it a safe choice? Um, does it cost you something? And then if you have made the leap into selling, did it change the way work means to you? You know, um, do you think that if quilting is just your hobby, you do what you like, when you like, how you like, is that a safe choice? Or does it also cost you something? And then if you've made the leap into selling, did it change the way you work or change the way your work, your quilting means to you or your expression? Has it changed what that means to you? So yeah, anyone can jump in, drop your comments in the chat, if you're watching on YouTube, and I'll be sure to get to you. Lisa, you still have some thoughts you want to finish off?
Oh, I'm sorry. The technology things was coming across all at the same time, and I was trying to whatever. Anyway, but basically, I was saying that I don't. I enjoy it as a hobby. I don't really know all the commercialization thing that goes with it. I've had several opportunities to share my work with people because they like it, and whatever comes out of it, fine. Whatever doesn't, that's okay too. So I'm just enjoying the ride of being able to find fabric, make things out of it that I enjoy looking at and people enjoy it. And so that's how I feel about it.
All right.
Sorry.
So Bob, any thoughts on?
Well, this is not necessarily tied into the commercialization, but I've had a recent experience where I was invited to I was asked by the Alabama State Council on the Arts for some of my quilts for an exhibit. And my very first reaction was starting to look at them and finding where, I may have cut off a point or the corner. It was a little stressful. It hasn't happened yet. The exhibit will be in the fall. But they came and photographed my quilts and they'll pick which ones they want. And I think myself included, although less so, I think a lot of us have imposter syndrome, thinking, like Lisa said, that she considers herself a novice after 13, 14 years. I don't know at what point we just say, I'm just a quilt artist and leave it at that. I'm not quite there yet, honestly, but the commercial side, when it's going to be exhibited or sold, it does stress me out a little bit. There's Juanita. Hi, Juanita.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
You guys started already?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Of course, I don't think your mother really.
Okay, well, yeah, please go on.
No, that's all I had to say about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and see what Juanita has to say.
Okay. All right. So maybe before Juanita jumps in, I want to just say that for me, I attempted selling my quilts, and I think, like Bob, it was I didn't enjoy the experience, because it put a lot of pressure on me, so I would also say that it changes the way you view your work, in a good way and in a not so good way. The good way is that, oh, you actually like this? I was just playing around. Oh, and you're willing to pay this much for it? Wow. So it actually makes you value, it made me value my work. That someone would see something that I'd done, that I felt, oh, I spent maybe too much time thinking about it, and you're always aware of your errors, and all of that. But so for someone to actually see it and say, oh, I love that and I want it and I'm willing to pay that much for it, is a great boost, to your creativity, to your confidence, and just to your creative self. On the other hand, inadvertently, it just puts a lot of pressure on you. And it's not even pressure that the buyer puts on you. You put that pressure on yourself. And then sometimes you start rattling around, oh my God, is it this way or that? Choices that you easily would have made previously may suddenly become a big deal. That was how it was for me. And so the added pressure, I didn't like it. I kept changing my mind. And at the end of the day, I'm not even sure what I expressed in that quote, because I was toggling between what I thought and what I thought the person wanted, and so I didn't come off as, I didn't enjoy the process of creation. There was nothing wrong with the quote, but I didn't enjoy the process of creating it. It took away the joy for me. And so I said, so my thing is, at where I am right now, I don't think selling my quilts is an option now. But what that did for me was, it helped me to understand what it would take for me to have to sell my quilts, my own mindset changes that I would have to make, and the structures I would put in place, if I ever decided to sell my quilt. So that's how that was for me. And once again, if you're joining, we are tackling the question, is keeping quilting as a hobby a safe choice for you, or does it cost you something to actually begin to sell your quilts? And if you have made the leap into selling, or you've sold at any time, did it change what the work means to you, the process, of quilting? Did it change anything for you? So please feel free to drop your comments in the chat if you're watching on YouTube or on Zoom, or if you'd like to speak up, please go ahead.
I'll say, as you were talking about, the pressure. It's like, so a lot of people, like the exhibits that I've had locally, people are like, oh my goodness, your work. So do you have it on Etsy? Do you have a website? And I'm like, no, I really don't want to do it for that reason, because I don't want to feel the pressure of, time management, of having to get things to people, when they need it or want it. I don't want the pressure of it, because it takes away the enjoyment of it for me. So I'll just say, well, if you want something, I can maybe make it for you in a couple of weeks or a couple of months or whatever the case may be, because I don't want the pressure of having a business or, doing it for finances. I like to do it just because I enjoy the craft. So it's more so a hobby for me.
I absolutely agree. One way, though, that I think I could totally sell quilts is if you buy from me ready-made. I'm pottering around, making my decisions, doing my thing. And you come and you say, hey, Miriam, I'm looking for quilts. And I'm like, okay, I have 5. Here are the photos. Or come and check them out. Which one do you want? And it ends there. But I do not think I am cut out for commission. I tried it once and I don't think I'll ever try it again. At least not in the near future, There was just too much pressure. And for me personally, like I said, decisions that are normally easy suddenly became a tug of war between me and the buyer, and it took the enjoyment out of it. So the only way I would sell is if I build a collection, my existing quilts, my already made quilts, I don't have a problem selling that.
I
Well,
agree.
and Miriam, the question I would have is, how do you put a price on that
There
quilt?
you go.
And because I don't know that people really appreciate the work that goes into it. You go into a store, I'm going to use this store for example. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it. But anyway, I've gone into some country shops and I'll see a quilt in there. And there's like maybe 4 or 5, but they're not pieced. They're one big piece of fabric quilted together with the fancy quilt design. What we do is we piece. Piecing takes a lot more work and creativity than just taking 2 pieces of fabric, putting batting in between, and then doing that fancy stitch. And even with those, sometimes the prices are just too high. I'm like, really? I would not pay for that. And so, how do you, one, put a price on a quilt? I do a lot of fashion sewing for people. I even have difficulty with that. I sort of know what I would like to charge them because I think I know what it's worth because they're getting a one of a kind. But I've never really been able to really put that price on things the way I believe they should. I sort of look at the person and I'd say, "Oh, okay, they can't really afford this, so maybe I'll just make it for this amount." I have a few people. I always say when people ask me to do something and they don't mention costs to me, I sort of know who, if you don't mention costs and who you are, I know that I can put that price on there. I can put that price tag on it and it'll be okay. And they'll give me extra when I finish selling it to them. But it's difficult. I really don't want to sell anything. I don't want to sell a quilt. I have trouble giving away, let alone selling. I can't even give anybody anything.
Same here. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really my major question is how do you put a cost that's going to
Yeah.
be worthy on that quilt?
When I first got into this 30 years ago, and so of course things have changed, a rule of thumb for craftspeople that sold like at shows and things like that, ready-made things, was you take your cost of supplies and you triple it. But we almost never get paid for our time. So if you figure like if I were to pay myself $10 an hour, which basically is, not a lot, but say $10 an hour, and my cost of materials, by the time it gets up there, like you were saying, Juanita, to tell somebody, oh, this has to be $800, take it or leave it, I'm not going to make it. I don't want to undervalue myself just because I think maybe they don't want to pay that. I did make a quilt for my friend's mom. She kind of asked me like 4 or 5 times. And finally, I just said, oh, I said, I'll do it. And she said, whatever it costs. And I thought, well, you shouldn't say that. But so what I said to her, and these are really close friends, what I said to her is, I'll let you pay for the fabric. How about that? You pay for all the fabric and I'll take it from there. So I told her, I said, altogether, it came to $100. Because basically I was just giving it to her, but she wanted to pay something. But it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because if you really charge what we should be charging the way any other professional would charge We tend not to do that. We tend to undervalue ourselves and then kind of feel bad about it. So, and unlike Juanita, I don't really even like giving them away unless somebody's really worthy of one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, just to add to what Juanita said, that's another reason why I would not take commission, but I would sell my already made quilts because
Mm-hmm.
to me, I would have already taken my enjoyment from the process. Because it really distresses me and it just fuels me, the whole process of deciding on a pattern and picking out your
Mm-hmm.
fabrics and all of that. That's the enjoyment for me. And so
Right.
it's like eating a lemon. I don't know how you eat lemon in where you are, but how we eat lemons, oranges. We take the orange and we peel out the back, what do you
Right.
call
The
the rind,
rind.
and
Mm-hmm.
then we cut it into two, and so it's in two halves, and then we squeeze out the juice, like you just do that like eating a mango, and sometimes you have the juice all over you. You squeeze it out and you throw it, and then you take the other and squeeze it out. So I see me selling my quilts as already made because I would have squeezed out the
All of
payment,
the
the
joy.
joy, out of the process. And honestly, after a quilt is made, I have them just stored. My home is not an exhibition place. I'm not going to put them all over. If I have photos of my process, and which I usually do, photos of the fabric, photos of the pattern, photos of me at work, photos of the finished quilts, I'm done. And so I've paid myself, then I now feel like I didn't do it for you. The labor was not for you. The labor was for me. And I'm not going to charge myself. Or if I've charged myself, I've already paid. So you can have what's left. And so even
That
if the payment is the cost of materials plus a margin, I'll see it as a win because the quilt would have done what I intended for it to do rather
way
than
to go.
what you wanted me to, wanted it to do for. So I kind of look at it like that. And that's why the only way is already made. Yes, you can have it, and you can have it at a reasonable price. Now, if you talk about costing quilts, I see that question all the time. People are always asking, how would you cost this? How do you do? And I've gone into a few quilters who actually sell, who have like websites, and they have listed quilts for sale. And I'm like, I won't buy it for that amount.
Exactly.
So I know I know the work that it takes,
Mm-hmm.
to put
Mm-hmm.
into it, but I wouldn't pay some of the sums that I see, people price their quilts for. And
Is
so
it
it's
because you
really
think you could
very
do it
difficult.
yourself? Is it because you
No,
think
because
you could do it yourself?
no, I think it's mostly because I see it as a pleasure thing. I don't see it as a job. I don't know. I'm sorry. Probably shouldn't say that. I see it as a me thing. It's like saying, okay, my kids, when you guys start working, pay me back for mothering you.
They can't.
Exactly. So
And
I
they
can't
can't.
really pay you for a quilt. That's how I see it. I can't really pay you for a quilt. It's one of those things. And then how would I cost my children to pay me back? So I don't know. That's just how my brain kind of thinks. So for me, I've solved the dilemma for myself. I'm going to squeeze my enjoyment out of it. And then if I'm selling it to you, I can sell it to you for cost of materials with a margin. And personally, I'll be happy because you really can't price a quilt.
Yeah.
You can't price that creative process.
Yeah.
Though fine artists do a very good job of it when they sell their paintings for millions. So maybe we should have that mindset as well. But for me personally, I really don't think I can price it to the point of saying my quote is like 8 million because, and then you come up with some artist statements and all of that. Maybe a collage, in the likeness of the person who wants it. That has some value. But something that is my creative process, I mean, not it has value. I can see the value for you because it's none for me. So I can transfer that financial burden on you. But for something that I've enjoyed, it's hard for me to enjoy it, which is my payment, and to ask you to pay me for it. Because I don't see quilting as a job. But I'm sure that will be different for someone who sees quilting as selling my quilts is my income. You would definitely see that different, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with maybe where you are, your location in terms of your access to people that are interested in potentially buying your quilts, right? Like, you know, if you don't have access to the environment, it's not conducive to people saying, oh, I would love for you to make me a quilt and I'm willing to pay whatever it is that you're asking for it. If you're not in that kind of setting where that's available to people, then you won't be trying to sell the quilts, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense.
I understand what
That
you're
makes
saying.
sense.
I had a person say the other day, she saw my African Queen's quilt,
Mhm.
and it's all pink and green because I'm an AKA.
Mhm.
So she said to me, "Oh, I would love to have one all pink and green." Now, immediately, my brain went to, yes, you are an AKA, but I am not going to replicate this quilt because this is mine.
Mm.
And then I thought, well, you could make it with different fabrics. You use African fabric. You could just get her some pink and green and call it a day. But I guess it was like a selfishness that came over me. It's like, oh no, I don't want to recreate my pink and green queens. Now, would I make her a quilt that was pink and green in some way? I probably would without a problem. But when people ask you, you just wonder, do they really understand the whole process? And I have in my home a family tree quilt with pictures and all kinds of things on it. And every time someone sees it, they say, oh, I'd love to have one of those for my family. How much it costs? Immediately, I'm like thrown off.
Mm.
I can't tell you how much that would cost. And I'm not going to try and do that. I'm like Miriam. I'm not going to do anything on commission because that really is a lot of pressure. But if someone could say to me, I will pay you, I don't know how many dollars, but whatever X number of dollars they said to me, to do something specific, I would still have to think about it because it is a lot of pressure.
Mm.
It's a lot of pressure.
And I'm not, me personally, I enjoy the art of quilting, but
Mhm.
I've found myself more aligned with being an artist rather than a functional quilter. So I never really made anything other than a lap size quilt.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I've made lap size quilts and given them away as gifts, but I've never been asked to actually make a quilt
A full quilt.
for anyone, a full quilt. And I probably wouldn't because of the fact that, you know, the money, the time that it takes, and I don't feel as though I don't think I would want to be commissioned to make a quilt. So my artwork is, you know, I'll sell the artwork, you know, and I have a hard time pricing that. I'm always trying to think of, well, can the person really afford it or how much?
Right.
And then my husband's like, listen, you put the work in, you should, you know, be compensated for the work that you put into it. So it's the struggle is real, as they say. So I have a difficult time trying to thing.
Lisa brings up a good point. You
struggle.
can't go into a store and say, I really like this lamp, but it's $300 and I really only have 100. They'll say, well, we're sorry, you know,
Oh
then we
well.
can't sell it to you. Oh, well, you
Yes.
go find 200 more dollars and come back. But Lisa brought up a good point and made me think about like the size of quilts. So I have a lot of quilts at home that we've made over the years. And I thought if I had a studio sale and had people come in, this is like a nightmare scenario. I love this quilt. Oh, can you make it in a king size? Can you make it in, and it's like, no, and no.
Yeah.
It is what it is, as we say.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Well, I think I like Miriam's idea. Once you've made the quilt, you've gotten the enjoyment from it, and you really do. That's really the piece. And what I like about what we do, what we're doing right now, is the whole community of quilters and just really getting together with people. So all of that joy you've gained. But if they're sitting in your house, like you said there, Bob, you got a whole bunch of them sitting in the house now. Um, and depending on how long they've been sitting there,
Yeah.
I might not mind putting a price on them, and then if people buy them, they buy them. If they don't, they don't. You see, it wouldn't bother
Mm,
me if I
right.
put the price on it, and but I wouldn't barter with people because I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to want to barter. They're going to say, "Oh no, I don't want to pay 300 for it. Can I have it for two?" And that's something I definitely cannot do. I can't do that.
No,
Yeah.
I'm no good at that. I'm no good at
no.
that. I always say I just cannot, diminish what people think something is worth.
Yeah.
I
There was
agree.
a comment a comment in the chat that says, "I find people love the quilt but don't want to pay the price." And
Hmm.
that's therein
That's
lies the
true.
problem.
That's true.
It's handmade and it's a one of a kind, and you take your hard-earned time and money to
Hmm.
make it,
Hmm.
and but people don't want to pay the price because they say,
Right.
"Oh, I can just go and buy one from wherever, a quilt."
But you can't.
Right.
But you can't. You
Right.
really
Right.
can't.
Not a handmade one. Yeah, you can buy one from a manufacturer, from a commercial quilt pattern. But
But it's not pieced. And we
right.
go there again. It's not a pieced quilt. It's just two pieces of fabric. I actually made a quilt for an event,
Mhm.
and they auctioned it off. Now, I was so nervous because I felt like, now, if that man give that quilt away for $300, I'm just going to fall on the floor.
Mm.
And so I didn't give them any parameters.
Oh,
They asked me to do it, and I just did it.
Mhm.
oh,
And I enjoyed doing it, and I enjoyed listening to people talk about how pretty it was. And oh, I really wish I had this. So the auctioneer started. He says, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now you think I'm going to start the bid at $50, but forget that."
good,
And so he started it at 400.
good.
And it's not, I forget how big it was, but it would fit on the top of a double bed. It's a good wall hanging. So he started the bid at $400. And of course, it was political season, and we had some politicians in the room. So it ended up going for about $4,500 is what the final sale was.
Wow.
So I was pleased with that because it was for scholarships, and I think that's why people bid on it anyway. It was for scholarships. So then someone said, "Oh, Miss Umbridge, I love that quilt. Could you make me something like that?" And then she said, "Well, how much would it cost?" And you know what I said?
45.
4,500.
I said, "Not less than what someone just paid for that one."
Good
Yeah.
for you. Good.
And she kind of looked at me, and I never heard anything from her again.
Yes.
Because I was like, I'm not going to sell you something less than what somebody already just paid for.
Mm.
But it does. Sewing, when I sew for people, I actually have told some people, they'll ask me and I'll make a joke and I say, "Oh, you can't afford me. Don't worry about it." I'll
Yeah.
make you something. Just don't worry about how much it's going to cost because you can't afford me. And they
Mm.
said, "Okay, we can't afford you, but would you make this for us?" I said, "Yeah, I'll tell you how much you owe me."
Well, I
Oh,
garment sew as well, but I
mhm.
only sew for myself. So people all the time, like, I wear my stuff to church with it, and they always say, "Oh my goodness, oh, I love it. Can you make me something?" And I'm like, "No, I don't sew for people because I know I just don't feel comfortable making
Mhm.
garments for people." So I
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I don't." I'm quick to say no to that. So because that's not my
Okay,
thing.
so I'm going to read some comments in the YouTube on the YouTube page. So Miss Joyce says that she would rather quilt for enjoyment, which I think is our unanimous
Right.
viewpoint. No one likes doing it under pressure.
Mhm.
And you want to enjoy the art, and learning about techniques and discovering about yourself and yours, so much about you, your creativity. So another thing she says is that people love the quilt, but they don't want to pay the price. That is it. People love it. Oh, it's so amazing. The colors are so fantastic until you name how much it costs. When you have to do anything, even what you love as a must, you either have to like totally switch your mindset, or you start resenting it. You start pushing back on it because it's not giving you what you thought it would, And so I also want to ask this question. There's really a difference between selling a quilt and running a quilting business. So I know Bob has run a quilting business before, but did you start by selling quilts and then get into running a quilting business? Or did you start running a quilting business and then get into selling quilts? And then tell us what that transition looks like.
Well, for me, we really didn't sell. We sold our shop samples. Once the class was finished and the fabric was sold out, we would then sell the sample if somebody wanted to buy it. So I wasn't making quilts with that in mind. It was like you said, I had these quilts. If you want to buy it, you can buy it. This is what it costs, kind of a thing. But mine was more like selling fabric and sewing machines and teaching classes, which is what I liked that part of the business. I didn't like the pressure of what's the next thing and da da da, or well, why does it cost so much? Well, you're paying for me to teach the class. You have to buy the materials. I mean, this is just what it costs. And I actually just got to the point, honestly, my last few years of working in a quilt shop, that was what I would say. They would say, why? And I would just say, well, that's what it costs. Like, I'm not going to defend myself or try to win you over. It's like, if you can't afford the sewing machine, don't buy the sewing machine. That's just what it costs. So
So we have an interesting comment in the Zoom chat. Maria says that it's one thing to create something and sell it, which is the camp where I'm in. It's another thing to be commissioned to create work and then charge for that work. So she says that you have to have those two mindsets. You can't you can't take the mindset of, oh, I'm creating this because I love it into commission work. It won't work. And that is so true. And you can't create quilts for your pleasure with a mindset of, oh, I'm going to sell this for this amount of money. So I think that's a great distinction to make, that, you just have to develop that mindset. And that's why I also think it would be a totally different thing if I had nothing to do, but I could quilt and that was my source of income. I wouldn't actually view it. I would find another thing to do for myself. It wouldn't be quilting anymore, And I think I can say, oh, I wouldn't charge because quilting is my thing. But if anything happened and I had to make quilts as my primary business, then I would definitely have to find something, to replace that release valve that quilting gives to me. Okay, so we're making progress. So does the quilt made for sale feel different in your hands than one made as a gift or for yourself? Not better, not worse, just different. And does that difference bother you? Has anyone noticed? This quilt is for me. This quilt I'm giving to someone, and this quilt is for sale. I'll go. I think it's definitely different. I'm a lot more relaxed making a quilt for myself than as a gift or for sale. Because I can make some decisions I can live with. It's my quilt. I know myself. I know my range. But I don't know what the other person's range is. I could make decisions that would take me out of the person's range. Like Bob and his first commissioned quilt, where she said, "Oh, I don't like the background after all." So it was out of her range. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing. So I hold it like an egg. Oh, I'm so scared. This thing, is it, oh my God. But for me, I know I know my range. I know there are certain colors I would never go near because it doesn't work for me. So I know it's either from here to here or not at all. Or I would wait for what I want to make sure that it's the way I want. I know my range, but it's a whole lot more pressure. And I think that's where some of the pressure comes from. Except you are able to have like client brief, an exhaustive, comprehensive client brief who says this, and most people can't do that creatively. Most people just don't have the bandwidth to give you an articulate creative brief. It's, most times you hear just any colors, or I like blue, and then you get the blue, and no, not this shade of blue, so so it's a lot. So for me, it definitely feels different. Even when I'm making quilts with my children, it's a lot of meetings. So what do you think? Do you like it? I'm going with this, back and forth is so exhausting. And yes, that is why I would charge for it, for that back and forth, for that, because it will waste time. It will tax you. Sometimes you may have to change midway, a lot of stuff. So yes, that is worth a charge. But if it's for me, then I know what I'm not doing already, and it just changes that feeling for me. So
And
let
if
me
you're
check.
making it as a gift for someone, if you're
Mhm.
making it as a gift for someone and they really don't know you're making it for them as a gift, you have the reign to do it the way you choose. But it does give you, in terms of feelings, it gives me a really good feeling. And I
Mm.
really I take a lot of care with it. I think I probably take more care with a gift than I do for myself. Because if it's something on there and it's mine, I'm like, okay, it'll be okay. But if I'm making it as a gift for someone, I want to make sure, the curves are right, the corners are right, the colors are
Mhm.
right, and all of that is okay.
Mm.
So yeah, and it makes you just feel good.
Yes,
But there's the selling piece, that's just so different. It's so different.
that's the
It's so
difficult
different.
one.
It's
So true.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm asked to make something, I always, or if I'm contemplating trying to gift someone with one of my um,
Mhm.
art quilts, I always check with the colors that they like. That's like the first
Mhm.
question I always ask them. Well, what colors,
Mhm.
or what are your favorite colors, or what colors do you want? And that
Right.
way, then I can gauge what I'm going to do based on the color scheme, and then I take it from
Yeah.
there. And but
Mhm.
that's the first question that I will ask. Well, what colors do you like?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I
Mhm.
think Miss Juanita brought out a really important point, that if
Mhm.
you're making it for someone who doesn't know that you're making it for them,
Mhm.
it actually reduces pressure
Yeah.
because you're making it out of what you know of them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The little
Right.
detail,
Right.
they just kind of like bubble to the surface,
Mhm.
and then you're able to really pour your heart into it. But if they know, it's almost like selling it because you're selling it for their approval.
Right.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know?
I
Mhm.
will say that
Um,
the gifts that I've made for people, I've made about five or so in the last 2 years or 3 years, but I already knew they would appreciate it because I know these people
Mhm.
well enough.
yes.
Otherwise, I
Right.
wouldn't have taken it upon myself. And one of them had been to our house and saw one of my quilts and oohed and awed, and oh, those are my colors. And so I remembered that. So when
Mhm.
when I made hers, I mean, it wasn't the same quilt, but it was the same color family because I knew she would like it. Otherwise, I think I can't fly blind. I've also learned that if I make a gift and I present it, once it's given, it's out of my hands, what they think of it, what they do with it, how they take care of it. I can't go to their house and check on them and say, "You taking care of that quilt?"
Do you know how many hours it took me to make it?
Exactly. Why is your dog laying on my quilt?
Exactly. I totally agree. It's just easy to make quilts for people that you really know.
Mm.
Little information that you know about them bubbles up and it translates into the care, that you put into making it. But I still think it's the same kind of selling pressure when either the person requests of you to make a quilt with a list, is the same kind of selling pressure, because now they're coming to you with expectations and a demand,
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
kind of changes things a bit, I think. All right. So we are getting close to rounding up, and I'm really interested in this question. So if you're watching the recording afterwards, I really want you to weigh in and drop that in the comments. Has anyone ever thought, even briefly, about teaching quilting? Not necessarily running a full business, but just sharing what you know as a commercial enterprise. What stopped you, or what would it take for you to teach quilting as an enterprise, as a commercial enterprise?
Hmm.
Well, you did, right, Bob?
I did. And I actually really enjoy teaching. Now that I'm retired, I have taught a couple of people to quilt because I enjoy doing it. But these are friends who just expressed an interest. So there wasn't really any pressure on me. They would come to the house. I told them, don't go shopping, shop at my house first because I have everything. So before you go spend all your money, I'll show you what you really need, and then you can buy whatever you want later. But I enjoy it, but I wouldn't. When I did it, it was the store, it was all together, the classes, the fabric, the sewing machines. I wasn't just teaching quilting as my job. But I actually really enjoy teaching. So I like it. If any friend of mine or even an acquaintance expresses an interest, or especially if they're a kid, because I love to teach kids. My 11-year-old nephew wanted to make a quilt with me. So I was like, oh, okay. So we sat down at the sewing machine. I told him what to do and he did it. And I love that, but I wouldn't want it as a job. For right now, it's the same joy I get from making quilts. It's that same feeling of sharing and passing it on, just like gardening or cooking or any of my other interests. If somebody wants to learn, I'm like, oh, I'll show you. Or somebody showed me, you know.
All right, that's really interesting. Yeah. So just dropping this from the YouTube chat, Linda says that if she makes a quilt for herself, she's not concerned about mistakes. But making a quilt for someone else, she is so sure they will find her mistakes, even though I'm not sure that's necessarily true.
Right.
But you always feel, oh my God, they're going to see this seam is not straight, or it's not a 1/4 inch and all of that. So it's just too stressful. No selling of quilts to anyone. All right. So any more anyone with a different take or the same take? Have you ever considered teaching quilting as a business, as something that you can do?
I have never considered it like that. I have taught a couple of girls in a mentoring group. So I helped a couple of young ladies learn the art of quilting. But I wouldn't, and I would if I was requested to do it in a community room type of environment, like a local community kind of project where they were looking for someone to, share quilting skills like that, but never as a business. I'm retired. I just want to relax. I want to chill. I don't want nothing stressful in my life. I don't need stress. So if I think it's going to cause me stress, I'm like, no, I don't want it. So
Yeah, I agree with you with that. I was asked there's a community center, a program, an enrichment program in my hometown, and she asked me if I would come over and help her out with the seniors, come up with something to help them. So I've done some crafty things, and recently, they asked me if I would share with them how to quilt. And they said, well, we're not going to make any big quilt now. We just want you to share with us how to do it. And I said, okay, well, we'll do some lap quilts or some pillows or whatever. And so, yeah, I'm doing that, but I would not want to be paid for it. It's just something I'm doing as a volunteer. And I have actually taught teenage girls, how to quilt. But it's all been voluntary. I don't really want to be paid for anything.
Okay, that's really interesting. I would have thought that okay, so maybe this is my cultural mindset kicking in. That that people would like the opportunity of having to be paid for something they enjoy. And the reason why I think there's a difference between making a quilt and selling and teaching to be paid is because I would categorize teaching to be paid as you buying my already made quilts. It gives me joy. I don't mind if I get some remuneration out of it, as opposed to making it a full-time thing. People would enjoy learning. You will enjoy teaching, and there's always a joy in seeing what someone makes because of a process, that they went through and they grasped it and all of that. So I'm really interested to hear that it's a no. So retirement you must have really worked hard when you were working. And you enjoy the just not having to do anything. So nothing would absolutely make you think maybe it's 7 years after retirement and okay, maybe I just go and do something.
No, not me either. I think that you have to have an entrepreneur, like for me, an entrepreneurial
spirit.
Yeah, it has to be in your spirit that you want to start a business and you're excited about it because there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you gotta deal with the powers to be. You gotta have all your ducks lined up. You gotta have the money, the financial. It's just too much. It's just too much for me personally. So I don't ever foresee myself ever wanting to go into a business type setting.
And my thing is, I'm retired too, but I still do things and I travel a lot. So I don't want you to back me into a corner where you say I've got to do a 12-week course. And I'm like, oh no, I won't be here that week and I won't be here that week because that would make me feel bad if I had to do that. But I take my travel very seriously. I take doing what I want to do very seriously. So if they can be flexible with me, I might say, okay, I'll do it over time. But then I'd feel bad accepting the pay because I didn't meet, the requirements that they had.
But I think that's the joy of quilting. That's the joy of teaching quilting. Nobody really learns quilting 24/7. There has to be something going on for people to say, hey, come and teach quilting, right? Yeah. So I'm thinking it's something that is flexible. And sometimes, honestly, it may not just be for the money. It may be because you want a gainful,
right.
It might be because you want a gainful. So, well, okay. So I think I see some cultural differences here between where you are and where I am. Because, like I constantly say, hobbying is not something the majority of the population does.
Yeah.
People just don't say, oh, I'm going to take my retirement money and go and buy fabrics and a sewing machine, sit down and make quilts and then just pack them up in my house. So I definitely see some cultural differences between us. People can say, okay, I'm going to garden, because I mean, there's no expense, so much expense attached to it. All you need is some strength and some mobility, to be able to garden. But for a thing like quilting that really costs a lot, irrespective of where you're starting from,
Right.
It's interesting to know that, oh no, I'm just doing this because I want to and all of that. Okay, but Therese says that she would teach a small group and preferably on Zoom so she doesn't have to travel. So this was the comment I was looking for. Yeah, I don't mind, just a little thing. Yeah, I'm fine with it. But Juanita said that as well. I want to be flexible. Lisa is no. I've been trying to get Lisa to teach. So even without pay, with pay, she's not interested.
Nope.
Lisa.
That is so interesting. Okay, so still in the process of rounding up. I think most of our debates kind of like or most of our discussion centered on the pressure of commissioned work and also the complexity of pricing.
Mm.
So this is what and it's been a long road to get here. Pricing is not a statement about the art or the product that you are, your art product. It's a statement about you. When you're undercharged, you're not really protecting the quilt's integrity. You're actually making yourself invisible when you are priced out of range, I guess. You know, personally, I would like to see more people selling quilts made with African fabrics. Personally, that's what I want to see. I want to see more people selling quilts that are made out of African fabrics. And you would do that as a statement of your statement as an artist, Yeah. So for me, I would really like to see more people selling quilts made out of African fabrics. I want to see more people teaching with African fabrics. So I think that is my position here, and to price fairly, not to underprice, and all of that. And I think that's something even me as a business person, I struggle with. Oh my God, is it too much? And then, you kind of forget the hours it took you to set it up, and do all of that. So sometimes you just have to be a little tough, and sometimes you have to be true to yourself. It's not always all about the money. Like I said, I can make a quilt. I squeeze my enjoyment out of it, and then I'm okay with paying getting a repayment for my materials, and then with a margin. I'm okay with that. It could be the same as well with teaching quilting. Sometimes you just take a stand. I love the idea of selling quilts with African fabrics, or people learning how to use African fabrics in their quilting and all of that. And like I said, it's not an easy road to get here. When you begin to see the nuances of the industry or of the hobby, and some of the imbalances that certain actions might change or, kind of like enhance. All right, so one final thing. Okay, so more comments. Yeah, great. So Joyce says that she was a substitute teacher and she wanted to help the sewing teacher, but they never let her help. So they sent her to other classes, and she quit the school system because she wanted to incorporate quilting into teaching, and then she wanted young people to learn. So yeah, I think that's a really worthy goal, when it comes to teaching quilting.
That's very interesting that she said that, because when I was teaching home economics, and I had a clothing class, I had a foods and nutrition class, and I would always get a substitute that I could trust to actually carry those classes on if I weren't there, because I did not want my kids to feel like they had to do busy work when I was not there. So tell her I would have loved to have had her as my substitute
Very
teacher.
awesome. And so, yeah, that's amazing, because that is the question. What would it mean for African fabric quilting specifically if more of us became teachers? Not
Right.
just makers, but teachers.
Mm-hmm.
No, not just quilting, but exhibiting. And it doesn't have to be anything big, fancy, you can be in your local anything. Like I said, I'm so excited that they say, oh, come to the library and exhibit, come to the community center. And I'm like, oh, a lot of places don't have that opportunity to, but those little actions, what would they do for the craft? Okay, so last one. I would charge more for my work as a quilter if you've sold anything, commissioned anything, what would be the one thing that would make you charge more? Hypothetical. This is just hypothetical. Just to round up our discussion. If Bob would take another commission, what would it take for you to charge more?
Mm.
If Miss Juanita would do some more commissions, what would it take for you to charge more? And if Lisa has exhibitions and people say, I want this piece, what would it take for you to charge more?
For me, it would take somebody in the industry or somebody from the tribe that I know to look at my work before the customer did and kind of give me a thumbs up and say, yeah, you should go ahead and charge that because that's what it's worth. That would give me the confidence to then do it. On my own, I'm not exactly sure what it would take, to be honest.
That's interesting.
I think I tend to look at who I'm working with, who I'm dealing with. I know there are some people that I kind of know cannot afford, but I think they might appreciate. And then I know there are others who will use it in such a way, and I know they can afford it, but they're using it as a statement as such. And so for those people, I really would not have a problem charging more because I know that theirs is not about, oh, I own this, she made this specially for me. Theirs is about I can't think of the word I was trying to use. They're using it to say, let's just say I have a Miriam Benson quilt hanging in my home. So they're using it as a showcase. So I
Yeah.
would charge them more because I know that's how they're going to use that. They're
Mm.
showing it off like the art
Yeah.
that they would show off as well. So yeah, I think to me it depends on who I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thought process as well. Location, like where, like say I had the opportunity to have my work displayed in an art gallery, like in New York City, say, and the people that come through the gallery are used to seeing, high priced objects and whatnot,
Right.
then feel like, oh, well, I could maybe sell that for more than what I would sell at my local community center.
Right.
Because I know the people that's coming through the local community center, they come and they browse and they like the look, but they might maybe not have the finances to afford something, high priced. So I think I would gauge it. So it depends on your audience. It has a lot to do with your audience. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I think I would also sit with that because that's kind of like a dilemma I've had. People say, oh, your quilts are so beautiful. But I know I couldn't even charge for the cost of the fabric. Here, I won't be the people that say they want that, I can't even charge them for the fabric. And I don't have the bandwidth now to say, oh, I don't mind, because I don't have the time and and all of that too. But there are craft shows where expats frequent that I could easily make everything from all the summits and from all our challenges that I would take there and I would get premium. And that actually makes me think, I've been leaving money on the table. So that's a good thought that Lisa has put down. That's a good thought that Lisa has put down for me today. So I now have a target for 2027. I'm going to keep making my quilts at my pace, and then afterwards I'll take it to the right audience. Because typically, experts would understand the value of one thing you may not know is here, jobs that require skill pay less than white-collar jobs.
That's here
But
too.
really?
Yeah.
But I hear plumbers earn a lot. Doctors earn a lot. Well, doctor is a white-collar job, I think. But plumbers get paid a lot, carpenters as well.
Same here.
For you, right?
Same.
Yeah.
No, but for us here, they don't get paid well at all.
Oh, okay.
Tailors, fashion, sewing, amendments, they don't get paid much. So it will be really hard for me to tell anyone, oh, don't you know I pieced it? They don't care. It's like,
Right.
is it not tailoring work you are doing? You know? But when you take it to the experts, they understand the value of time.
Mhm.
They understand the value of a charge per hour. And so they are more willing to say, and if I say, oh, this is a $300 quote. Oh, yeah, really? Oh, wow. And they would really pick it up. They would understand the value of a $750 quote.
Mhm.
You know? And then, of course, there's the added advantage for them of saying, we came into Africa and we came back to where we're
Back.
coming with an African fabric quote.
Right, right.
So, yeah, so I'm so glad I hosted this. Lisa, thank you so much. I'm leaving so much money on the table. And you all know I like money. So,
Yeah.
so I have a 2027 goal to make sure that, I do
But
that. But yeah.
I was reading one of the comments, and it was just saying that she would have a problem with trying to put the same quilt in two different environments, same time and same material. Maybe she's like, I'm not saying that, oh, if I made a quilt, I wouldn't say that I would go, if I'm in that environment, then I'm gonna charge $1,000, but that same quilt, I'm gonna have it at this location for $500. I think it depends on, like, I don't know. I just look at the environment where I would have the quilt, and charge according to what I think is fair. It has to feel fair to me and fair to the person. Like, I wouldn't overcharge just because I was at a gallery in New York City, say, but because they
But a
take 30,
gallery in New
they
York
take
City would
30%
actually
commission.
not buy a cheaper quilt from you, would they? I mean, if the quilt is too cheap, I don't think they would even show it or buy
No,
it.
right,
They
exactly.
won't
So
sell it.
yeah. And they charge, anytime you have it at galleries or whatever, they charge 30% commission. So
So yeah,
so
yeah.
so
So
yeah.
they expect you to put a price on it. They
Right.
expect a price, a good price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything going in their museums, they
Mhm.
expect it to be pricey.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense. So
Mhm.
Therese, I think, and I honestly think it would be difficult to have the same quilt in two different places.
Mhm.
It's difficult to have it could be the same pattern, but it certainly won't be the same quilt.
Yeah.
Right,
right.
So yeah. So I would definitely sell the same pattern in two different places at two different price points.
Yeah.
Depends on where. I would do it. I don't have a problem with it
Mhm.
because there's no way they would be exactly the same
Right.
quilt two
No.
different places. But I mean, even if you look at the markets in the village here would sell you better tomatoes cheaper than the markets in the city center.
Mm.
Same tomato, possibly the same supplier, just dropped it off. But because this is in the suburb and this is in the city, it would cost different. So, I mean, yeah. So I don't think personally I have a problem with that. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I think this is some of the conversations, that are good for us to have, where we don't mind talking about the money side of things, versus the individual creative side of things. I wouldn't take a commission. It doesn't matter how much you're paying me. I don't think it's worth it. Unless you're giving me, like, you say, oh, whenever you finish, okay, fine. But with a lot of constraints, I don't think I would take a commission.
No.
Yeah. And to a fairly high price point, I don't think I would. I don't think it's worth it for me, because for a lot of reasons, but then it's also important to say sometimes opportunities come up that it's not a big deal. You already have it, maybe, or it's something you plan to do, or it's something you've done before and you can get it done. Why not? So I'm so glad we had this conversation. I want to say thank you so much to Miss Lisa and to Bob and to Miss Juanita. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, and to Maria in the comment section. Thank you, Miss Therese and Miss Joyce and Linda, for dropping your comments in the chat box. If you do get to the YouTube channel, if you're there now or you're watching later, please, there's a poll. Go ahead and fill out the poll for us. Thank you so much for another wonderful episode. And next week, we will have Miss Cheryl hosting her session, and I hope to see you there as well. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Miriam. See you.
Miriam.
Nice day,
Goodbye,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
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 Okay.